Hello and welcome to Fractions, Decimals and Percentages, the equivalents with qubit education. In this lesson, you will learn why fractions, decimals and percentages are all interchangeable and how to convert between fractions, decimals and percentages. So let's look at a few facts first. The word percentage means out of 100, so 20% actually means 20 out of 100. When we look at fractions such as a half, it's like saying what is a half of 100. A half of 100 is 50, so a half is equivalent to 50%. But we can think of decimals like money, so 0.25 as a decimal is exactly the same as 25 pence, for example. And because 0.25 is the same as 25 pence, and that there is 100 pence in a pound, it is the same as 25%. We'll look at these in more detail as we go through the lesson. Let's look at decimals first. Decimal means out of 10. So, thinking about money, 0.1 is the same as saying 10 pence. 0.2 is the same as saying 20 pence. 0.75 is the same as saying 75 pence. And 1.00 is the same as saying a pound. So decimals are easy to convert to percentages. Remember that percentage means out of 100. So, to turn a decimal into a percentage, we just multiply that amount by 100, just like we did. 0.1 times 100 is 10%. And as we said before, 0.1 is like saying 10 pence. So it's like saying 10%. So if we do that to every decimal we come across, we just multiply it by 100 and it tells us what it is as a percentage. That's a great thing to remember or to write down. Any decimal we find, to turn it into a percentage, we just multiply it by 100. 0.2 times 100 is 20%. 0.3 times 100 is 30%, and so on and so forth. And 1 times 100 is 100%. So can you see a pattern here? As we can see, you're just adding a 0 onto the number of the decimal. So 0.1, it will just be 10, 0.2, 20, and then we put the percentage sign on the end. Decimals are the easiest ones to turn into percentages because you just add a 0 to the end and get rid of the 0 point at the beginning. And it just means that you've times by 100. So pause the video and have a go at converting these decimals to percentages and back again, and then I'll put the answers up for you. Okay, if you've paused the video and had a go, here are the answers. So 0.25 is 25%, 35% is 0.35, 0.4 is 40%, and 65% is 0.65. 0.21 is 21%, 82% is 0.82, 0.132, be careful, we're only moving the decimal place twice because we're multiplying by 100, so that'll be 13.2%. And then 62.4%, we just move it back the other way twice, 0.624. Okay, so fractions to percentages then now. To turn a fraction to a percentage, we just find the fraction of 100. So for example, if I wanted to say what is a fifth as a percentage, a fifth can be turned into a percentage by finding a fifth of 100, because a percentage means out of 100. So just keep 100 in mind and you should be able to remember all the moves, all the steps. To find a fifth of 100, we're just going to split 100 into 5 pieces. So that's 100 divided by 5. Okay, to find a fifth of 100, we do 100 divided by 5. 100 divided by 5 is 20. So 1/5 as a percentage is 20%. So let's look at another example. A quarter can be turned into a percentage by finding a quarter of 100. To find a quarter of 100, we do 100 divided by 4. 100 divided by 4 is 25. So 1/4 as a percentage is 25%. Another example, this time with a recurring decimal, a third can be turned into a percentage by finding a third of 100. So to find a third of 100, we do 100 divided by 3. 100 divided by 3 actually comes out as 33.33333333. Now, to find a quarter of 100 and a fifth of 100, you should easily be able to do those without a calculator. In order to find a third, well, I'd suggest you learn it because it comes up quite regularly. But if you can't, then hopefully it will be on a calculator paper. But again, a third, 33.3, not too difficult to remember. Now, because that's a recurring decimal, we write it as 33.3% with a dot above the final 3 to show that that 3 goes on and on and on and on. Okay, now let's look at another one. What is 3/5 as a percentage? Now this time, to find 3/5, before we only found fractions with like 1/5, 1/4, 1/3. So this time we're finding something with a numerator that's bigger than 1. So to find 3/5 of 100, we're still going to split it into 5, but then we're going to find 3 of those. So we're going to do 100 divided by 5, which gives us 20. And then we do 20 times 3, which equals 60. You must have heard of the rule, we divide by the bottom and times by the top. That's what we're doing here. We're doing 100 divided by the bottom, which gives us 20, and then times in by the top, which gives us 60. That's how you find a fraction of any number. It doesn't just have to be out of 100. If they ask you for 3/5 of 75, you'll just do exactly the same method. But this is specifically for turning that fraction into a percentage. So that equals 60, so 3/5 as a percentage is 60%. Okay, so pause the video and have a go at turning these fractions into percentages. You can use a calculator for questions 1, 4 and 5. Okay, so hopefully you've paused the video and here are your answers. Now number 1, again, if you can try and remember this, that would be great. It's quite unlikely that it will come up on a foundation paper without a calculator, but it's best to remember as many as you can just in case. So 1/8 is 12.5%. Okay. 2/5 is 40%. 3/4 is 75%, which you should already know that one, by the way. I suggest you learn that one. 1/6 is 16.6% recurring, so there's a dot above the 6. And 2/3 is 66.6% recurring. Okay, so well done if you got all those right. If you are struggling with anything, please don't hesitate to contact us, and we'll try and help you as best we can with your studies. So percentages to fractions then now. You need to remember that percent means out of 100 at all times. Percentages to fractions aren't too difficult, so let's look at 20%. So 20% means 20 out of 100. So we can just write it as 20 out of 100 like that. Now, there's something wrong with that though. We need to cancel it down. You must have seen this 1,000 times at school, college, wherever you're doing your GCSEs, or your SATs or anything like that. So you must have seen it loads. So when we cancel it down, what we do is we think of a number that goes into both 20 and 100. Now, 20 and 100 both end in 0. So that means I know that 20 and 100 can both be divided by 10. So if I divide both the top and the bottom by 10, I have 2 on the top and 10 on the bottom. Now, I can't divide by 10 again because I've not got a 0 on the end of the 2. So instead, a number that goes into both of these is 2. So we divide the top and the bottom by 2. So 2 divided by 2 is 1, and 10 divided by 2 is 5. So it becomes a fifth. So 20% as a fraction is a fifth, which we kind of already knew because we looked at a fifth of 100 earlier and it gave us 20%. Okay, so let's look at this one. And 30% means 30 out of 100. So we write 30 out of 100 like this as a fraction, and then we cancel it down. Again, these both end in 0, so I can divide by 10, giving me 3 over 10. Now, 3 is actually a prime number, so I know that that won't go any smaller. If you can't remember what a prime number is, I believe there's a video on there. If there isn't, there'll be one on there shortly. And a prime number is basically a number that only has 2 factors, 1 and itself. But again, you can check out the other videos. So 30% as a fraction is 3/10. 25% means 25 out of 100. So we write this as a fraction and we cancel it down. What goes into both 25 and 100? Well, I know that if this ends in 5 and this ends in 0, it must be in the 5 times table because everything in the 5 times table ends in either 5 or 0. So I know I can divide by 5. So 25 divided by 5 is 5 and 100 divided by 5 is 20. And again, they both end in 5 and 0. 5, 0, so I can divide by 5 again. 5 divided by 5 is 1, and 20 divided by 5 is 4. So 25% as a fraction is a quarter. You must remember that percent means out of 100. I keep saying this and it keeps coming up on every slide, but you really must in order to remember the methods. So 32% then, let's do another example, means 32 out of 100. So let's cancel it down. Now these ones end in 2 and 0, which means I know they go into the 2 times table because everything in the 2 times table, well, obviously it needs to end in like an even number or a 0, so 2, 4, 6, 8 or 0, which is technically 10. So I can divide by 2, so that both even numbers I can divide by 2. 32 divided by 2 is 16, and 100 divided by 2 is 50. Now they're again both even numbers, so I'm going to divide by 2 one more time. 16 divided by 2 is 8, and 50 divided by 2 is 25. I can't go any lower, no number goes into both 8 and 25. So 32% as a fraction is 8/25. So pause the video and have a go at turning these percentages into fractions. Okay, I assume you've paused the video and had a go, so let's have a look. We've got 19%. Well, that one's quite easy because 19 is a prime, so nothing goes into it, so it's 19 out of 100. 24% is 6 out of 25 because we would have done 24 over 100, which would have given us 12 over 50 and then 6 over 25 if you'd have halved everything. Okay, 45% would end up going down to 9 over 20. You would have divided by 5 there. And then 70 out of 100, or 70% would be 7 over 10. And finally, 36% is 9 over 25. Okay, because we would have halved it until we got as low as we could. Okay, so well done. I hope that went well. Let's move on then to doing decimals to fractions. Now, turning a decimal into a fraction is similar to what we've just been doing, just with one more step beforehand, and that's turning it into the percentage first. So you have a decimal, 0.1, and can you remember we just multiply those by 100 to turn it into a percentage? So we multiply it by 100, gives us 10%, and then 10% means 10 out of 100. Okay, so 10 out of 100, and then we just divide to simplify. So we can divide by 10, giving us 1 over 10. So I'll go through that a little bit slower, just in case you didn't catch it. Let's look at 0.18. That's a decimal. To turn it into a percentage, we multiply it by 100, like we did at the beginning of the lesson, to give us 18%. 18% means 18 out of 100. If I have 18 out of 100, I just need to cancel it down to make it as simple as I can in its simplest form, it will say in your exam paper. Divide it by 2, giving us 9 over 50, and we can't go any lower than that. Okay, so pause the video and have a go at turning these decimals into fractions. Okay, so I assume you've paused the video and had a go at these. So 0.17, sorry, is 17 out of 100. 0.78 will get you 39 out of 50. 0.85 will give you 17 out of 20. 0.60 will give you 6 out of 10. And 0.99 will give you 99 out of 100. Okay. So finally, turning fractions into decimals. Now, in this one, I'm going to show you how to do it with a calculator, and next week there'll be a video up on how to divide fractions without a calculator because it's a little bit tricky. So let's look at these ones. So these are the fractions that we should know. Okay, you should know a quarter, a fifth, 3/4, and a half. Now we should know that that's 0.25, which is also 25%. We should know that this is 0.2, which is also 20%. We should know that this is 0.75, which is also 75%, And we should know that a half is 0.5, which is 50%. Now, if you don't know them, I suggest you write them down and learn them, because they are the ones that will come up, and you need to just know them off by heart, because it'll be easier for you to complete any calculations where they're involved. Now, ones that you don't know, such as 1/7, which is quite tricky, you don't know it, all you need to do is remember the line that is in between the fraction. So this line just here, that line means divide. So that means 1 divided by 7. Now, just be careful. It's the small number divided by the big number, which you might not be used to that, because normally it's the big number divided by the small one. But it is actually 1 divided by 7, because it's going to give you a small number, a 0-point number, a decimal. Okay, so that's going to give you 1 divided by 7. 1 divided by 7, 0.14285714. So it's really long, so we're just going to round it. So 0.14 to 2 decimal places. So you've just done that on your calculator. You don't need to work that out in your head, but I will show you how to do it on paper next time. Okay, and if you're not sure how to round, make sure you check out the video on rounding to decimal places. So have a quick go at doing these. They should be nice and easy now you know how to do it with a calculator. Okay, pause the video and have a go, and I'll put the answers up. So I assume you've had a go. So 1/8 means 1 divided by 8. Oh, sorry, let's come up with the wrong one, never mind. 2/7 means 2 divided by 7, which is 0.28 to 2 decimal places. 3/5 is 3 divided by 5, which is 0.6. And then 1/9 is 1 divided by 9, 0.11 to 2 decimal places. And finally, 1/8. For some reason it's come up last, never mind. 1 divided by 8 is 0.125. Now, the 1/8, you could do with learning that one as well, actually. I did say that earlier. This would be a good one to learn because it does come up quite a bit. And as a percentage, 12.5% that is. Okay. Don't forget to turn all of these into percentages now. You're just going to times them all by 100. So it's easy to go from a fraction to a percentage. Okay. From a fraction to a percentage, we can either do the fraction of 100, or we can turn it into a decimal first and times by 100. Okay, but just learn these methods and you'll be absolutely fine. Okay, so well done, and thank you for using Cubit Education, and we'll see you next time.